Hi, everyone. This is Reinette Senum with Reinette Senum's foghornexpress.substack.com. Over the years, many of you may know that I've been fighting against certain things like 5G and geoengineering and also the corruption of our government and how they're giving cover to many of these type of programs. And I have been following and a great admirer of a woman by the name of Elana Freeland. She's written some seminal pieces out there. She's an author. She is an investigative researcher. She knows how to take some really complicated information and put them into story form so it better assists us in understanding what's really going on in our world. And now more than ever, we need to hear from Elana Freeland. So she's going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking about all the most pressing issues of our day. Hello, Elana. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Reinette. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I've been a follower of yours. You've written, of course, under An Ionized Sky, which actually I was on, as I mentioned to you before we started recording here. I was on the city council, and you actually quoted me in your book, Under An Ionized Sky. I said, that's probably how you recognize my name. And of course, you also was this Chemtrails, HARP, and Full Spectrum Dominance of the Planet Earth. And at the time when that book came out, it seemed far-fetched to many people. It seemed outlandish. It seemed like a conspiracy theory. And now we fast forward to today, and you were absolutely, sadly, you were absolutely spot on.
Yep. Yes.
So what I'd love to speak with you today is one of the things I'm seeing right now rising to the top, because you've been on this trail way before I have been, but I've been also right behind you in your wake. And people are finally waking up to transhumanism, geoengineering, the dangers and the real reasons behind 5G or the millimeter wave. And of course, now we're talking about the vaccinations, how they play into this whole entire program around transhumanism and co-opting our blood and our souls. And so I would really love for you to basically start where you want to start, but let's just kind of lead into like what's been going on and where we are today. And I just have to say, the good news with all of this is that people are waking up now and talking about the weather warfare, talking about the haze in the sky, talking about the dangers of these vaccinations. So there is actually some amazing hope on the horizon, I have to say. So let's talk about where we were and where we are today and just get going.
Okay. So I finished the third book in the trilogy. It's actually a trilogy of discovery, I would say. I finished Geoengineered Transhumanism, how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetism, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. Now, was I crazy for pulling together 5 giant subjects and thinking I could write one book about how they interrelate? It did take 650 pages.
Wow.
And 60 illustrations to tell the story of how we've had geoengineering for about 25 years. The program I'm talking about, the classified program that to the public is presented as solar radiation management, because we're in a condition of climate change and global warming. What you can do on the internet with a classified project like geoengineering is you can find a lot of things, but the way it's kept secret is interesting. You don't know how they relate because you don't have the background. So it reminds me of that old Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris, when Osiris is killed by his evil brother Set, and his body is chopped up and strewn all over the Nile Delta. And Isis, the sister who is married to the king, who is her brother, she has to go in search of finding Osiris's body. And that's kind of how I conducted myself. And it just happens I am female. And so looking for data on the chemtrails. Now, that was the term we used years ago. It's a term that I would imagine was supplied by the CIA, since the CIA owned the original found its way to take the original patents from Bernard Eastland, the scientist who actually built HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, up in Gakona, Alaska. And HAARP is very key to this story. Even though the word chemtrails is known more, that acronym HAARP, great acronym, is quite well known in the public, but it's never really ever accurately defined, nor is its origin. And so the CIA was first in owning the patent to HAARP, and that tells a lot, because from the CIA it then passed to Raytheon, which I consider a synonym for the CIA. And so Raytheon then owned the patent. And, you know, it's a matter of follow the money is where I started out. Like, how do I find out who's running these chemtrails, these chemical trails? And just to deal with that really quickly, because I always have to deal with it, it is not the same thing as a contrail. No. The contrail is a condensation trail, which is very short, lasts for maybe 15, 20 seconds, and then dissipates because it's mainly water vapor and particulates. But the chemtrails, the chemical trails, and the term chemtrails is actually from the U.S. Air Force Academy chemical manual for Chem 101 for pilots. So, I mean, they're the ones who supplied it. And I could also say the Air Force is almost a synonym for the CIA as well. So originally it was intelligence agency run, and that's why it's still classified, because the lies and the subterfuge of like climate change and global warming have to be controlled centrally and distributed wisely for their side, so that people don't really find too many anomalies that they can say are really about somebody lying to them. So that's sort of where I started. And then and I'm a data freak. I love, I have a master's in historiography, so I consider myself a pretty good researcher. And so I began to put together the puzzle pieces that were scattered all over the place in order to build a picture. And I was greatly helped by the only scientist. I thought he was the only scientist I knew, but really I think he was the only scientist who was independent and pursuing a similar trail to mine, but by collecting condensation after the jets were flying over northern New Mexico, and taking the scrapings from his HEPA filter in order to see what was in the air. And he was already using barometric devices to study the atmosphere and how it had been changed. And that was Clifford Carnicom had been working since the late 90s on this. And I met him serendipitously in the early 2000s, and we began to put our heads together, and I took, of course, copious notes as usual. So that's how it all started. I'm now 3 books in. 13 years of my life I can honestly say, have been obsessively thrown into this, because slowly I began to realize, it's not just the chemtrails and HAARP. This is a planetary move of the global elite to absolutely control the entire Earth and the people on it. So,
before you continue, I just want to say it's really important that a lot of people say this is not possible because it would require too many people to do this type of a global program. And you explain clearly chopping up the body, right? Essentially, these are all programs that are chopped up, and it's very similar to the Manhattan Project, where you're in your little silo thinking you're doing this kind of work, not realizing it's related to a larger project and a larger goal. And I think it's also has to be very clearly stated that I've been an environmentalist, and I mean a real environmentalist, not a United Nations version. And when climate change came onto the scene, at first I was greatly concerned about it. And I started nonprofits around it. We were fighting against it. We were doing things around. And it now makes sense why climate change was, of course, is before global warming, and we aren't warming, we're getting cooling, but so they've had to change the terminology. But it makes sense now why climate change had to be put out there on the front as the cover story, because those in control, knowing what they were doing, knew that there's going to be some cataclysmic changes and weaponized weather coming our way, and they had to have a cover story, and they've got it.
And it's a great cover story because it's very, climate change. It's very flexible. So you can have it mean just about anything. And even the global warming. I mean, that's the thing that Goebbels, the propaganda minister of Hitler, taught us is more than Edward Bernays. He taught us that the big lie is the best one to keep. Yeah. All you need to do is keep repeating it, and eventually it will be accepted as the truth. And in a mass society like ours, where the media is all corporate and all controlled, it works. It works great. And so you have people like me nibbling away at the edges. Mm-hmm. And as long as I stay at the edge and I can be kept there, and I'm not awakening too many people, mm-hmm. then I can also serve as a truth dispenser. Mm-hmm. That they want the population to know, because they want the population to basically be helpless and complicit. And so you've probably noticed that many times we'll be informed of what's coming down the pike, but informed usually in a pre-programmed movie, entertainment, or 60 Minutes episode way, where we're told the truth, a lot of the truth, mm-hmm. but there's a little bit of a spin on it. And that's the best disinformation. And really, the CIA has developed it into a total science. So for people who are just trying to know the truth, they don't know whether to believe this personality or that talking head or that source. It is a real conundrum. And I see why people get depressed. They get confused. They don't know who to believe. But I think this is the clarion call for us to develop another type of intelligence than college, high school, grad school type of intelligence. We have to learn to discern. And Paul talks about this in the New Testament. He talks about that spiritual discernment is probably the highest function we can develop. Of course, there is always love, which also he promulgates, but it's really this discernment what we need now. We need to be able to read between the lines, behind the lines, through the phrases, through the personalities, and come up with what is true. And that's really what I'm good at. That's what I've trained myself to do. And therefore, why did I do that? Because, to tell you the truth, I am still ticked off about John F. Kennedy being murdered in full television in Dallas, and not one person has served a day in prison for that crime, the crime that traumatized the entire nation. I had tea with Kennedy in the Rose Garden when I was 16. I was at Girls Nation. I'd been chosen by about 850 girls to represent my state. I was there with other girls, and we were there with Boys Nation. And it happened, Bill Clinton referred to it many times. He was there. He had a lot of photo ops taken of him, though, unlike myself. And meeting Kennedy and then going back to my home state and giving a speech to the civic groups that had paid for my trip to Washington was great. 3 months later, Kennedy was dead. I was invited back to give a speech, and everyone was sobbing and running from the room, completely traumatized and sad that a sitting president could have been killed in such a manner. So why am I doing this geoengineering thing? Well, I was following the CIA too. I knew they were involved, and I've never gotten over my rage about that, and that the Americans seem to be like deer in the headlights and did absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that's when the coup really, really began. It's a whole other level. that was the beginning of massive psychological operations and trauma.
Exactly.
And I wasn't even born then. I was born in 66, but I see that I'm still traumatized and angered by it, because I know that was really the end of the American dream. It was like it was over by that time.
It was over.
And that's when, of course, the CIA literally usurped America, began to feed us lies and propaganda. And every subsequent generation since has been deeper, almost deeper and deeper in the trauma. It doesn't
in the trauma, and now it's an interesting the young generations coming now who have been basically electronically programmed from the time they're born because of television. I was raised without television. I'm a child of immigrant, and I had an immigrant upraising, Eastern European. So I didn't have TV. I didn't have any of the accoutrements that many children who are not so poor have. And therefore I read early, and I began to develop an inner life. And that inner life is something that the iPhone cannot give you. It cannot give you an inner life. I do not own an iPhone. I've never owned a television either. I know these are weapon systems because the military had all these types of technologies for at least 30 years to work out the kinks and to make sure they could use it for what they call dual use. And that is what we have now. We have a very militarized environment through these so-called convenience entertainment devices. And the American, if the American can be sold that it's something that adds to their convenience, and then you've got it something you can call for emergencies on. There's no real deep thinking going on anymore because the education also has created a dumbed down population. And no offense to people, because it's that's how it was set up.
Yeah.
And I had the last excellent education in America possible in public, and I went to some private schools as well. So I had what it used to be called liberal arts education, very broad, based on the 7 academia of the ancient Greeks, and I was able to learn to think, because thinking was something that teachers knew they had to teach students through whatever their subject matter was. Now it's so different, I've substitute taught in this system for quite a while because I had, of course, a teaching certificate, etc. And just seeing it, and then being able to just be a babysitter there, not a teacher who signed on the dotted line, not a teacher who had to fill out bazillion forms in order to be a teacher there. I learned what was being done to the American of tomorrow. And now we are in tomorrow. And this is why something like could happen in the last 3 years of people lining up for experimentation with no knowledge and no understanding of the incredible dangers that they were being subjected to. So, we've come a long way, but it all started with my anger over John Kennedy, of why I've been looking under the American rug and examining the dust and detritus under there and pulling it out, and seeing what its name is and reading a few more books about that in order to understand all the things that have happened. And that is just so wonderful that I've been able to do that. Of course, I've had to live, without the big career and the big money, but I definitely always have chosen to live on the edge, because that's where you have the best chance of staying awake. And that, you can't get too poor, and you can't get too rich. You've got to somewhere find a place in there where you can stay awake with minimal energy, because everything around us tries to put us to sleep.
100%. And it has been generations in the making of disabling us. Not that I don't know some wonderful young people, but when I look at the inability for them to critically think, to self-start, to question authority, it's because we're going into hard times, as you know. And I really am very concerned for the young people because, as you said, they haven't looked within themselves. They haven't established their own soul, their own center, their own personality, their own character. And when things get rough, I'm like, what are they going to be pulling from? What are they going to pull from? Because their iPhones aren't going to be working any longer. They're not going to be functional, and they're not going to give them what they need. So I have a question for you before we continue. So the CIA obviously committed a massive coup on us. And there's other earlier coups, right? Like with the Federal Reserve and so on, 1913.
Well, but the CIA works for others. That's just
that's my question. So who are they working for? Who, when you go back, where does it lead us to?
Oh, that's easy. Because I cut my teeth on conspiracy books years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. We were reading, for example, The Committee of 300 by John Coleman.
Yeah.
I've read so many of that ilk that I became familiar with bloodlines and all the things that the CIA was saying are conspiracy theories.
Right.
I was, as soon as they'd say it was a conspiracy theory, I was interested because I knew that was one of the things under the rug. It had to be because the media, I've known since the 70s that's when the CIA imposed Operation Mockingbird on major American media. It's 1973. And since then, the CIA has controlled everything, including Hollywood. So, I think the kind of the last thing I want to say about the CIA is, yes, they work for the global elite. And the global elite includes the nouveau riche, those who have the ticket to get into the circus or the big game by having made a lot of money off of a lot of people. And then it's also the old money. And those are the bloodlines. And they take very seriously human blood. Human blood for them is not just a material item. It carries a lot of things that are, to most people, intangible. And I think that's important because of what's going on right now regarding the inoculations. The human blood is under assault. And it has been under assault since Clifford Carnicom discovered Morgellons back in 1999. That was the year. And 1999, of course, is, right? 666 upside down. So he discovered this Morgellons. It took him a long time to figure out how to break into the polymer fibrous shell that it's in. Usually it looks like a sort of a black fiber.
Right.
And getting inside and then discovering other organs. And then studying them. And meanwhile, he's trying to contact the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. He's trying to contact the CDC. We know that one quite well. All of these agencies that would be concerned that something environmentally was being done to undermine human health. He's trying to contact them. He wants them to repeat his experiments. He's a real scientist. He used to work for Department of Defense. He knows how the drill goes. But they're ignoring him on the one hand, purposely, while sneaking into his site to see what he's come up with without saying a word in any media. I mean, he has a list. He used to have that software on his computer, and they cut that out where he could see who visited his site. And there they are, all the alphabet agencies, 125 of them on any day of the week, coming in to see what this guy, this trained scientist, is able to come up with, because thus far they had been able to do it without anyone noticing. For probably the program had been going by then by about 5 or 6 years. So anyway, that's important to know about how this has been controlled from day one. And we have had many dramas in our anti-geoengineering movement. And would the CIA have been involved in? I would assume so.
Yeah.
But there are how many agencies now? We have 16 or 17 of them. So some agency in charge of that, just to keep things tweaked a little bit, keep this person hating that person, get one of their agents in there as a limited hangout in order to really control the operation, particularly in California, because California is used consistently as an experimental guinea pig. So that's kind of what I discovered. I knew nothing when I went into it, and through these 3 books, I have gone deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until I again came full circle to the biology. Because of course Clifford was about the biology, though he studied the atmosphere and everything else too. But now with this thing of the last 3 years, as soon as I saw that Wuhan scene, the very first one that they were getting out to us, where people are dropping over. And then we're hearing it was actors, and then we're hearing that it was real, and then we're hearing it was actors, and the usual confusion. But I saw that scene, that one scene, whether it was actors or not. I knew that the announcement was being made that 5G was out and ready. And then I discovered subsequently that Wuhan had put up the state-of-the-art 5G. They had invested in the best 5G of that era. And then we saw what happened. So for me, I kind of had my finger on the pulse of what this is, in part because I'd already discovered how Morgellons, the big part it was playing in people's bodies, that would get these terrible lesions on their skin. Yeah. Or their entire, I met one sufferer, her entire scalp had been taken over by the Morgellons. It was a huge colony that had grown at her scalp. So, I discovered these horror stories that it was being distributed purposely in aerosols. Now, it could have also been, I've just heard recently a story from I consider an expert, that there was also in 1991 on the East Coast where there's a biohazards biowarfare lab level 4, that a hurricane in 1991 caused a spill to happen there. And some maintain that this is how Lyme was released. Possible, though I am a student of the U.S. military and the deep state, and know that they often release things such as nuclear accidents, quote unquote. They often release these things into the environment to then see what happens.
Yeah.
This is how the so-called scientific thinking goes. Let's see what happens, like kids in a game. So however it happened, Morgellons is still, to this day, being aerosol released. And we've seen it in the masks. There have been little videos of those. We've seen the Morgellon fibers, and we've seen it on the PCR swabs.
Yes.
So it's still in use. And Clifford Carnicom, who was really a historical figure for all of this, he's back, and he's making those connections. Now he's got 6 new papers up at his site, carnicominstitute.org. And of course, he wants to show that the assault on the human blood began back then with Morgellons, and now has developed further to what we're seeing with the inoculations going on now. And I'm right behind him, because that's right. Exactly what I've seen. And 5G, 6G systems play a crucial part, as we've learned with the Bluetooth video feed we've seen.
Yes, that's terrific. Where you see people have their Bluetooth, numbers essentially from the vaccinations. Well, my viewers will tell you, they've heard me say this many times, but I just want to say it's an important part of the puzzle. That is that when I was mayor and COVID hit, I did drive around sometimes various times at night, midnight, 2, 4, or 5, because I'm like, what's happening while we're locked down? And I did see over and over and over again, and then I confirmed it around the world, that generally between 3 and 5:30 in the morning, utility trucks would come out and they would actually relay the fiber optics, which is the back of 5G, millimeter wave, from pole to pole. And I couldn't figure out, I'm like, why in the world are they doing it for 2.5 hours every night? At the deepest time of our sleep was because they were doing it worldwide.
Yes.
At the exact same time.
Yes.
It tells you it had to have been years in the making, because you just can't pull that off like that.
Yes.
And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my Lord, obviously 5G, these antennas, which is already fighting against anyway, are a part of COVID, very clearly.
Very much so. Yeah. The millimeter wave and then 6G. I maintain, though I couldn't prove it in a court of law at this point with documents, I maintain that 6G is going up simultaneously, because the 6G is essential to controlling the other crucial part to what is going on now, which is the dominance of nanotechnology. Mm-hmm. And the nanotechnology is so tiny. A nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. So very impossible to see without instruments. However, there is a kicker there that maybe we can talk about regarding the California fires, where I did see footage, drone footage, of how the nanotechnology is being used in geoengineered fires. And I talk about that in this third book. You need the terahertz if you're going to run nanotech. So they would have to have the 6G as well. And it makes sense, because they're not telling us any truth anymore.
And
it's
so 6G is terahertz. That's the difference between 6G and 5G is terahertz.
Yes, it's terahertz. It's tinier even than tinier.
Okay. And so let's talk also about what we're seeing with the weather manipulation and the fires, because I have to tell you, ever since Starlink has been up and functioning, we have seen an exponential rise in forest death, in tree death, in bird die-off, in pollinator die-off. And in fact, we have a little cabin up in the mountains here in the hills. We have the river. And it was our one little getaway where we could go, and the trees were all untouched. And last summer, for the first time, trees just started dying within 5-6 days. We'd watch them start to turn brown and they'd be dead. We were being told by people, it's the drought, it's the drought. It's like, no, it's not the drought. These are trees, all different types of trees, from aspens to conifers to oaks. They're on the river. They're along the riverbanks. This has nothing to do with the drought. So, and I know that pine trees and pine needles can act as an antenna. So pine trees in particular are highly vulnerable to this. So can we talk about the impacts of Starlink? Because the only thing that we could think of that was different from before was that Starlink was up and functioning.
Right. So to do that, let's take just a brief look at what I said in Under an Ionized Sky, which is basically a book that I was led through that book by Billy Hayes. He had been in the CIA basically since he was 8 years old. I know that's very young, but his father was a CIA agent. And Billy was programmed at the grade schools and high schools that he was sent to. The CIA has grade schools and high schools over this entire nation where they program children. And certainly the school, people in the school know this. So Billy guided me through to understand the next phase of the HAARP chemtrails project, Cloverleaf, which is what it's known as, which was the space fence. And the space fence patents are owned by Lockheed Martin, yet another of the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us of on his way out of office. So Lockheed Martin owns those patents for the space fence. But what is the space fence? Well, you ask Lockheed, and they're going to say it's this one, these radar installations that go all the way to the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, and it goes all the way across the United States, blah, blah, blah. But the space fence is actually much, much more than that. And that's what that entire book is about. So I lay it out in boring detail sometimes, where you have to understand that all the green energy things, like solar panels, like wind towers, all of the, I mean, I still hear people say that, that the wiring of the cell towers is actually, the fiber optics is really the way to go. And then you're not in any danger. And I just listen to them in amazement that they can be so disinforming of the public. So all this equipment, I go through it in detail so that we understand it's been built up around us as a way to control us through frequency. And that's, of course, what HAARP is the best at, because it has complete control over the ionosphere. And I'm serious, complete control over this huge part of the Earth's sheaths. And this would be starting at 46 miles up and going on up. It has complete control over it, uses it all the time. That's what makes it a weapon system. And they are able to control the Schumann resonance of the planet. They're able to control the frequency of our brains. Our brains, of course, are corollary to the Schumann resonance at one time, 7.83. But now they move it all over the place, and our brains are meanwhile going all over the place as well. So just remember frequency. Tesla said that if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand frequency and vibration. So, all right, so that's part of this setup of the space fence. All right, so there's the space fence infrastructure on the Earth. Then above us was before the Starlink satellites of Elon Musk. And by the way, that's only 32,000 of them. There's way more up there belonging to the Department of Defense and all the different agencies. Way, way, way more. So anyway, before that, they were building a what do I call that? A ring around the equator up in space, made of a lot of the metals, the heavy metals, the nanotech metals that they're dropping on us from the stratosphere. That's all coming down. But a lot of it ends up being centrifugal force circling the planet and making actually a very Saturn-looking ring. And this ring is ULF, ultra low frequency. So they can use that ring. They were using that ring and building it, continuing to build it, add to it, in order to sandwich us between the infrastructure on the Earth and then that ring in space. Now it's moved to high gear, and you're right to think the satellites of Elon Musk. You're right to think of that, because those went up. The timing of it is everything. They went up, and then we're in this 3-year thing that we're in now. So yes, you're being radiated intensely from space now. All of life is being radiated intensely from space.
Well,
and do they know it? Oh, they know it. They know. Of course.
Let me add to this. So for years now, I've had my little acoustimeter, and I read, the sky. I point in different directions, and I have to note, interestingly enough, that when I go through my house, I still read from the sky. It's not as hot as when I'm not under a roof. But what's fascinating is when I read it over my bed, it's the hottest point in my whole entire house.
What do you have in your bedroom, though?
Nothing.
Do you have electromagnetic devices in your bedroom?
No, I'm hardwired. I have no Wi-Fi. I'm very cool that way. But let me tell you something that's very interesting. Is a couple of years ago, I pointed towards the ground and it'd be nothing. I now pointed to the ground, my acoustimeter, and I'm getting a reading from the ground. That didn't
right. And remember, from the ground, it would, of course, be how they're sandwiching us between we have this entire geomagnetic grid under us.
That's right.
And that is part of the magnetosphere, which is about 22,000 kilometers up.
Wow.
Above the ionosphere. So they are obviously, and then when we saw the graphene oxide in the shots,
Right.
and we saw people with spoons hanging on them and all that,
Right.
they are obviously using magnetism as a control device on all of life on Earth. So let's just keep that in mind, that the radiation, let's stick with that for a minute. Yes, we are all being radiated. The Fukushima was no accident.
No.
And neither was Chernobyl, etc. So the radiation part of this story is interesting, because what I maintain in the third book, Geoengineered Transhumanism, is that they have been concentrating on controlling the environment primarily, so that a real human being feels completely uncomfortable and is unhealthy, and then they can pick up the pieces of that by big pharma and big medicine, where they make a lot of profit off people's illness. It's all about illness. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13, actually. I'm 75. I do my own Chinese medicine. I studied it in my 20s. So anyway, I think the problem with the American and others, not just Americans, is it's hard to imagine such a level of concentrated intentional evil. It's very hard, because we're basically decent people, might fudge on our income tax and might, try to get a little extra here and there. But basically, we just can't imagine operating on that scope, which the global elite have for thousands of years. So now this looks to be, despite all the all the rumors of this and that, and we're constantly being barraged, this looks to be a revolt, and it's because, meanwhile, while all this has been going on, and they've been trying to dumb us down and control us with technology, and we've got the nanobots in us. They have the nanobots in touch with supercomputers everywhere, and so they can control us through the nanobots if, this is a big if we do not have a conscious inner life.
Okay, so I want to talk about that, because when you hear all this, you're like, oh, it's over, we're done, we're toast. And I'm like, first of all, these evildoers are trying to act like a god. Nobody's going to out-god God. And nobody's going to control our spirits ultimately. They don't have that kind of control. So what you just touched upon, and I am seeing this, is that people are waking up and they're realizing something is afoot, and they can sense it, and they're angry. They're getting more and more angry, and they're realizing the level of deception. And even as simple as this is, I had a gentleman on last week named Matt Roski. He has what's called cultivateelevate.com. And people, and this is catching on like wildfire, people are catching on to the old tradition that was pretty much eviscerated and wiped out from our knowledge of electroculture, where you just get a piece of wood, and you just wrap, copper wire, you stick it in the ground, and it collects, the good energy from the ethers, puts it in the soil, and really helps revitalize the soil. And it helps, you get more crops, more fruit and so on, and bigger produce. And I have to tell you something, Elana, this thing is catching on like wildfire, because this was what's happening. People are saying we understand, even if they don't fully understand what's going on, something is seriously wrong. And people are looking to figure out, how can I, in my own accord, with my own hands, counter this evil. And people are also realizing that they have got to disconnect from this centralized system that is literally weaponized every aspect of their lives. And that is something, like you, I've been doing this long enough years, I'm seeing this crescendo, I'm seeing this change, a shift happen. And I'm watching this, and as a dear friend, not dear friend, a dear friend, somebody who I'd love to watch named Cliff High. He's not a dear friend. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Cliff High. He lives in my state.
Oh, I love him. So one of the things I thought was very interesting that he said is like, we're all concerned about AI and being taken over and the central bank digital currency. He said, but the thing is that we are waking up faster than they can put everything into place. And they got a lot of pieces into place, but they're still reliant upon the human species. And once the human species really realizes, and we're no longer compartmentalized like we have been, and we realize there's really a global domination going on, a human domination going on, that the people on the inside are going to start to hack it, destroy it, take their time to repair it, and it's just not going to survive. Do you believe that there is within this evil that type of a seed of destruction where it's either it's going to eat itself alive, it's going to eat its own children, or people are going to wake up and the system just can't keep up to the Great Awakening fast enough before the human beings go, you know what, we're part of this, you need us, we're still laying out the infrastructure, and no, not on our watch, we're going to destroy it from the inside out. Is that even still possible? Is that possible?
Well, I'll put it this way. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that possibility. Okay. What I think about is levels of depth in this inoculation assault that still remain hidden. You have not seen the last of this. Yeah. And when you said that, humanity still has its spirit, yes, real human beings still have relationship with this. What I don't know. Did you know I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner?
No, well, actually, yes, I did. Actually, yes, I did.
Okay, so I've been a student of Rudolf Steiner used to be a Waldorf teacher.
Right. And he's been spot on.
Yeah, he's spot on. And so the idea is that these inoculations are the first venture toward a transhuman race.
Right.
And so the people who have been inoculated, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, there seem to me, and I have enough data, and I'm about to rewrite, believe it or not, half of transhuman, the geoengineered transhumanism book for Inner Traditions publishing company. They've asked for a second edition, and I'm going to redo the synthetic biology portion. I just finished the geoengineering portion and sent that off to them. So in there, I'm going to really thoroughly look at what all the good doctors, including the disinfo doctors and the researchers, have basically come out with in a variety of things. But on the overarching picture of the inoculation assault on the human blood, I see a two-pronged assault. The first is genetic. That's the mRNA spike protein assault. Okay, so that's part of it. To make everybody's body, bypass the immune system, make everybody's body a little factory of disease to enrich the coffers of big medicine and big pharma. Okay, that's one. The other one, people don't seem to understand, which is understandable because we are now just the cybernetic age, which we thought was just computers and, data logging and data memory and stuff. No, that this is the beginning of the cybernetic cyborg age. Wow. In which they are putting in the serums into the blood tiny nano-sized computer parts, real computer parts, and you can see this. They have what's called dark field microscopy. Oh yeah, and dark field microscopy is able to see the very, very tiny and its positioning and follow its replication. Once it's in the body and the body is warm, a lot of these things that are kept at -70 centigrade because they have actual, I don't want to call them life forms because they're not carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen based, but they're calling them by patent inorganic life forms. So do with it what you will. But that's, they keep it cold, they put it in the body, immediately it starts replicating, self-replicating. And what they're seeing are these little tiny, well, I can't call them anything other than routers. They're routers. They look just like a router, but they're very tiny. They're on a nano scale. There are circuit boards they're finding. So that's the other prong, is that would be the 5G, 6G prong, in my opinion. First of all, yes, the Bluetooth electromagnetic leash is on every single person in the world who has been inoculated at least once. They are all being followed. And
well, I want to add to the inorganic life forms. When the shots first came out, I was on this weekly Zoom calls with a lot of the cutting edge doctors, and Dr. Carrie Madej, and this is before anybody knew what was inside these vaccinations, she showed us on our Zoom call a little glass slide of what was inside the vaccine. And she showed it to us because you're not going to believe this, but basically what she was showing was that what was inside the vaccine had a consciousness and was actually trying to crawl off the side of the glass slide. It was actually trying to escape out. And she's like, I've never seen anything like this before. And I remember when I first saw that, my heart went into my throat. So there is something there. So it's not maybe our kind of consciousness, but some other kind of hybrid consciousness. But
she might. There are so many things Carrie Madej did. It might have been the Hydra vulgaris, which is a sea creature, very tiny. But right. But yes, you're right. The Morgellons itself crawls. Yeah. So we're dealing with scientists who are creating inorganic life forms. And the idea for the transhuman, of course, is that we will eventually, that transhuman race will eventually be inorganic, not carbon-based anymore, silicon-based, whatever based. So anyway, this is why what has happened. I mean, I understand people just want to go, okay, that's over, good, whoo, that's good. Okay, let's not think about it anymore. That's the American way. That's the American way. It's all done. It's gone. It's gone. Well, that didn't work well with the Kennedy assassination because we're still lost. We're still very, very, very lost as a nation that was supposed to be the protector of the Bill of Rights. So no, I'm not going to let that pass. This is still going on, and it has yet to unfold. So when you ask me, in a way, you're asking me, do I have hope that we can overcome this? Yes, we can, and we will. But do I know how long that will take? Probably not till my next lifetime. Yeah, would be my guess. But I certainly am. I certainly am prepping for that lifetime because I'm taking all this that I'm learning here with me, and I'll be back, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said once, right? So, but on the whole, those who have an inner life, and I have this on very good authority, those who have a real inner life have real fighting tools to remain human. But it begins by looking at our lifestyles to remain human. I own no iPhone. No, I have a landline. That has to do, that's good enough. And then no television. It's mind control city. Yep. I'm telling you, there's nothing good about TV I can possibly ever say. Yep. Take it and throw it away. Get rid of it, because its microphones are on all the time. Its video features are on all the time, whether you've got it unplugged or not. Oh, wow. We're talking a weapon grade, whether it's HD or whatever, So I look at my environment, and I have one military weapon, my computer, my laptop. I need it for my to make a living. Right. I need it to inform people of what I'm finding so that they may have a better life and a better chance at this. But otherwise, no, I don't own anything that is over. I don't have any IoT particular. My fridge is not talking to my stove. Uh, and yet I live in an apartment where they have devices around, and I have to live with the devices in order to get the cheap rent I get. So, there's trade-offs. There's no absolute way you can stay safe. And I have to add something here, and I don't want to go into it, but I now know that even in death, you will not be able to leave this behind. And I have that on very good authority. So let's just look at our lifestyle, pare down in all the toys, the asking Alexa what blah, 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 or whatever that is. No, get rid of it. And then the next thing is your diet. Are you eating alkaline or acid? If you're eating acidic, change it. You need to be eating alkaline, because nanotechnology loves acidity, and so does 5G, and so does 6G. So acidity is a huge part of this. We've known that for years, but of course, everything that's commonsensical and natural that you could be doing yourself, big medicine and big pharma have tried to eliminate that confidence in you, so that you come to them with a sniffle even. It's unbelievable. It's like a, well, it is. It's a cult. I call it a cartel because it's a money cult, but it is a cult. So the food, I've eaten well all these years. I prepare my own food. I eat organic. If I go out and have GMO, I eat like a saint the next 3 days, because I know that the restaurants are using GMOs.
Yeah.
38 countries in the world have it as a felony to even enter the country with GMOs.
Oh, that should tell you.
38 nations, and that includes Russia. All of Russia now is organic, and if you come in with anything, it's almost considered the Western diabolical grains and vegetables and whatever. You go to prison. That's how important it is.
Wow.
Because the GMOs are a delivery system, just as the chemical trails are a delivery system, just as the inoculations are a delivery system. Let's wake up to the fact that we're in a spiritual war for the sake of retaining a human race into the future. And that's what I give all my time to. The inner life is up to you. It isn't a matter of being Christian, Buddhist, anything. It's more about the quality of your consciousness, and then the rest of it is not in my pay grade. I have my own path, and that certainly is crucial to me. But I don't talk about it. But I do talk about the inner life, because I have a very big inner life. I could not do all that I have been doing for the last 40 years had I not had an inner life like that. So these are the three things that I put up to people. And the only thing, Reinette, that I didn't do properly when you asked about the geoengineered fires, I did not finish that, and I would like to finish that very briefly. And say that there's a video you can watch put out by Jamie Lee, whose moniker is A Plain Truth, PLANE, Truth. He put out a video series of over 100. He lives near Paradise, California.
I remember that. Yes, I know him. Yes.
Over 100 videos about these fires and how they're geoengineered. And the one I would recommend you listen to is his series is called let's see, Paradise Lost.
I think Paradise Lost. In fact, I'm going to try to pull it up and put it down below for my viewers.
Number 51. And in that one, he interviews an anonymous, though you can figure out who he is. I did figure that out after I talked to him on the phone for an hour. An anonymous nanomaterials PhD who worked in the nanomaterial. That's the name of that science for nanotech. And he's following the drone footage with Jamie. And if you can get Jamie to be quiet so that this other guy could talk, you learn that you see this footage of these what look to be like embers, like there's a wind blowing, and these embers are, and they're like in clots, and they come together, then they go out a little bit apart, and they're going very fast. They're moving fast, and then you realize, wait a minute, no, those aren't embers. What is that? And then slowly you realize it's nanotechnology, and these are being controlled by some guy on a laptop somewhere, and being sent to this house to run up the wall and set this one on fire, and then leave that one, and then go down and skip that house and go to this next house and run up that wall and start the fire. And you realize this is like a little army. This is like a little intelligent army of nanobots that are being run by satellite, I would assume, but inevitably by a laptop. Or maybe it's not a human operator. Maybe it's just an AI program, and they know whose houses to burn and whose houses not to burn, however it works. But it was a huge moment for me that we've got to be constantly vigilant that we have these old script definitions of things and what they can and can't do. And now we're in a new era where all of this has been changed, sometimes inverted, completely inverted. And this is where that same discernment I was talking about comes in, this ability to have spiritual discernment, but at the same time also to have your perceptions and to honor them. We've been taught that our perceptions don't mean anything. We want to find out if something happened. We turn on the 6 o'clock news. We don't really honor our ability to perceive anymore. It's been, as Marshall McLuhan used this great term, it's been mediated.
Yeah.
That's why it's called media.
Yeah.
Is they mediate our perceptions so that we can't form the right concepts from our percepts, which is a Rudolf Steiner language, for why you can find the truth right in front of you. But if you don't have your percept, you won't have the right concept. You see how it works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that is something to me that has been stripped within Americans, is that we are not taught to trust our intuition, our gut feeling. We're not taught to inquire, to question. And that's why I said I'm really concerned with the younger generation, because they're that much more into the thick of it, right? Whereas you've got me and you and some older ones, they've tapped into that and they're familiar with it. Whereas that's a muscle they haven't flexed. And I have to say, when Paradise hit, I was vice mayor of Nevada City, and I went there just a few weeks after it happened. And I went to Hurricane Katrina and did some volunteer work there too. And it reminded me a lot of Hurricane Katrina. And I knew Hurricane Katrina was not something natural. It was the first time I actually went home and I had a little bit my tail between my legs, like, what the hell was that? And I saw Paradise, and it was very similar, except for Paradise was charred, but it was just decimated, same darn thing. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I had people here who were tow truck drivers and first responders, and they went there, and in spite of what the news and our own county government told us, like, oh, only one person died running down the road through all those embers and firestorms. And I had friend after friend saying, Reinette, it was a genocide. There's just bodies littered along, because nobody could live in that heat. Nobody could run for that long. Nobody could breathe. Right. It was horrific.
That's right.
And that is that's the level, that's the scale of warfare that we are in right now. And so
that's right. And that's where the geoengineering comes in, because you can't develop that kind of heat, such as at 9/11. You cannot have that kind of heat without an ionospheric heater operation going on.
Well, and we do have, I have one of my viewers, he sent me from 2013, one of his lab results of some trees that had fallen on his mother's property. And he had took the tree bark and he had it tested, and it was just full of aluminum.
Oh yeah, we've had decades of aluminum.
Yeah, 2015. Yeah. So I actually asked him to go back and grab another piece of bark from that same area and test it again to see how much more we have. So what do you think, Elana, what parting words do you have for our viewers? What do they need to know that we have not covered? Anything else we need to do you've talked about some countering measures, which is really, I like to say, like cooling down your house, right? Having, like, I'm hardwired, I have an Ethernet. No television, no modem, no none of that. I have little, Faraday cages to put my phone into. What is there anything else that people need to know right now that you think some of those burning topics that we have not addressed?
Well, yeah, I suppose I would mention, I think to do a tour of your house and show how you do that would be a great show to do for your listeners. Would be, don't give way to depression and fear, anxiety, because these are all acid producing emotions. And really, you're part of the human race, and you have an opportunity here. You chose to be born in this time. This is not a mistake, but you perhaps have forgotten why you came. And perhaps you could find the threads of that again, so that you could get busy and take advantage of this great opportunity to be on the earth at a tremendously dangerous and powerful time. I just almost have to pinch myself that I have been so fortunate to be here, because I am warrior through and through, and have been for, thousands of years, really. And now I have the opportunity to gather my forces. I'm not recruiting anyone, but I definitely feel that I am gathering data, information, knowledge, wisdom, and forces among those who recognize what I'm saying and act upon it. And who knows what the future will hold for those who take that kind of consciousness through the gates of death.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I saw some video the other day where a gentleman was saying that, it was much more easy to be spiritual 100, 200 years ago than it is today, right? There's a lot of dark forces.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Rudolf Steiner says that over and over. This is the age of evil.
That it feels like the age of evil. I often challenge people when I say, just tell me one thing in our world that has not been weaponized. And you know what? I've asked that dozens and dozens of times. I've never had anybody actually say to me, this has not been weaponized.
Right.
I still challenge people to this day. But my point is this, is you're right, is that this is thousands of years of evil. The evil is it's gathering, it's gaining momentum, but so are we. And this is a spiritual war. This is a war, for humanity in our soul. And I do want to remind people, just like you said, like you were born for this time. You're here for this very reason. And don't give the machine what it wants, which is fear, depression, anger, fighting. Don't give it that. If they're building it for that, that's exactly what you don't want to give it, because you're just feeding. You want to give it the polar opposite. That's your cue. Give it the love, creativity, joy, laughter, friendship.
But hard work too. Hard work. Most people are just they're just not working at the.
They're not, and that also is by design. And as my parents taught me, my parents were an older generation, and I didn't like it as a child, but they taught me how to be a workhorse. And I learned at a young age that your work is an extension of yourself and how you show up and how you generally.
But I mean work in this area, Reinette.
No, well, I'm talking about work in this area. This is because this is all we live and breathe. Like you, my friends, my mama were. This is all we do day and night. When you go to sleep, you think about it. In the daytime, you're working on it. We don't stop. And the irony is that we're trying to save a lot of people who don't like us. I'm like,
yeah, that doesn't matter, does it?
I know it doesn't, but or who are angry at us or don't understand.
They're misled. They're very misled. And so also the other thing I wanted to say is, if people want any books of mine, I highly recommend that instead of going to Amazon, that you go to a little bookstore in Seattle called the Rudolf Steiner Bookstore.
Nice.
They handle everything I write.
Fantastic.
And you can order from them, and then you're supporting it's a tiny, tiny bookstore.
Right.
So please do that. Rudolf Steiner, RUDOLF Steiner, STEINER bookstore. Very easy to remember in Seattle, Washington.
I'll put that down there as well. Oh, Elana, I so appreciate you. And as I've said, I've been a big admirer of yours and your books and what you've been doing. And I've been watching you for a long time. And you're just an amazing, amazing soul. And you really do represent the best of humanity. So I just
Well,
want to
and you too, back at you, because I so appreciate people like you who really put their life on the line for this. Once you've realized how important it really is.
yeah, it is. It's the most important thing. So thank you so much. And viewers, please share this with everyone you know. This is one of the most important topics out there. It's about us, our humanity, and it wakes you up to what's really going on and it makes sense. So thank you once again, Elana. Thank you, everyone. And keep looking up. Don't look down. Don't get down. And we're going to get through this. So thank you once again, Elana Freeland. Bye, everyone. Thank you.